Hi, Steve here, and this is my weekly diet update.
Okay, as you can see, I took that weight off again. I'm down to 247.7, and my body fat's 23%. I can't seem to get it below 23%. I'll still work on it. My fat mass is 56.2, which is the lowest it's been since I've been measuring them on this machine here. So still making some slow progress. Not as fast as I would like, but just gotta be patient with it. I actually did some squats this week at the gym on Monday because I heard at the beginning of the week if you work out your legs hard, it gives you more energy for the rest of the week. And it seems like it did because it seems like I had a little bit more energy at the gym throughout the week. I don't have any science behind that. I just overheard someone saying that, or someone told me about the squats on Monday, so I did it. So I think I'm going to keep doing that. My hamstrings and my quads, all my legs were sore. I don't know why my hamstrings were sore. I went down really low. So I'm going to start doing those squats every Monday. Okay, so this week I will be sharing my Xbox collection, the original Xbox. This big guy here. I have one of them in here and one of them hooked up to the TV. I actually have two of them. And I have a little remote control for the DVDs. And I have the big Duke controller, which I like. And I have several of these smaller controllers. Okay, so this Xbox era was the time I really got into video games. This was like my second really big run with video games. First was like around the Super Nintendo time when I was a kid. And then I was always into games a little bit here and there, but never really got back into them until I bought that Dreamcast. And that whetted my appetite for something else, so I bought this Xbox. So I played a lot of video games around this time. It must have been the late 90s, early 2000s. I got a really good job, the one I'm still working at to this day. So that was another reason I had money to spend on games. Now I don't buy games that much because I have a family and a house and bills to pay. Back then I just had an apartment with some roommates, so I could blow all kinds of money on junk food and video games all the time. And that's probably when I got the biggest video game collection I have for my Xbox. I spent a lot of time on the Xbox. I remember sometimes I would buy one game a week and play a game a week. And then over the years I've collected a few more here and there if I see them for cheap at thrift stores or yard sales. Okay, so I'll start sharing my games here. Here is Commando Strike Force. This must be a military World War II shooter. My brother-in-law gave me a truckload of World War II games. He was into World War II games. He ended up giving me all of his Xbox and all of his games, and there are a lot of World War II games in here. I'm not really big into first-person shooters, but I kind of find World War II kind of fascinating, so I don't have the heart to get rid of these. I'm figuring someday I might play them when I retire, or when I have time, or when my kids move out. Here's Secret Weapons over Normandy. That is an airplane shooter game, it looks like. I haven't played any of these World War II games, or very few of them. Here's Medal of Honor Frontline. I did play this one. I like this game a lot. First-person shooter adventure game. It's a really fun single-player adventure. Here's Medal of Honor Rising Sun. This one is more of the same, but it's over on the Pacific. So it's Pacific warfare. I think it's on the ground, first-person shooter. I haven't played much of this one. Medal of Honor European Assault. I haven't played this one at all, but it looks pretty good. Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30. Another one I haven't played. These games look terribly fascinating, so someday I would like to play them. Another Brothers in Arms, Earned in Blood, Call of Duty Finest Hour.
I'm not sure what version this is. I don't know if there was a PC version and a separate console version. Call of Duty 2, the big red one. I know this isn't exclusive to the consoles. I know there was a separate Call of Duty 2 for the PC. Oh look, I actually have 2 of those. And then Call of Duty 3. All of these look really good. Then on to some more first-person shooters. Here's Halo. First-person shooters are not really my thing, but I did enjoy this game a lot, and the multiplayer is fun, and the co-op story mode's really fun. This was kind of one of the games that kind of sold me on the Xbox, how powerful it was and how much you could do with it. I actually have 2 copies of Halo. I got this one for 50 cents at the music store. And here's Halo 2. I got that for 50 cents at the music store. I never played this one too much. My brother loved it. I think we played some multiplayer on this, but I think this was around the time Xbox Live started, so this was popular to play online. I never did that online stuff. This one's probably my favorite first-person shooter ever, Half-Life 2. This has a really fun story mode. The whole game is just a story mode. This is a really fun adventure, sci-fi themed shooter. A lot of horror, a lot of action, a lot of sci-fi. The story really just keeps progressing on. You keep moving from one spot to another. And I like the way the pacing of this game, it plays out really nice. There are a lot of little physics puzzles in here. Time Splitters Future Perfect. I don't have any of the previous Time Splitter games, but this one I bought. I really like this game. I played a demo of it, and then I liked the demo so much I bought the game. This is a little adventure, sci-fi first-person shooter. It has time travel involved, so you get a lot of variety in this. There's like World War I style fighting. There is 70s style fighting with like disco-themed levels. There's even futuristic levels in here. There's like a Terminator theme, post-apocalyptic level in here. There's just a lot of variety, and every level is a different decade in history with different types of weapons and different types of enemies. But this is a fun first-person shooter. There's a lot of comedy in here. It's like a parody of many other games all in this one game. Here's Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay. This is another one of my favorite first-person shooters. I was never huge into the Riddick movies. I could take them or leave them, but this game is really something else. A lot of stealth, a lot of sneaking around. It's like a prison break game, a sci-fi prison break game. A lot of sneaking around, a lot of taking out guards. A pretty fun little story too. I really like this game. This game graphics were really good for the time. You never saw anything like this on the PlayStation 2. This looked more like a PC game or the generation ahead of it graphics. This game looked really good. Here's another one that looked really good, Far Cry Instincts. This is a fun adventure, kind of open world first-person shooter. Here's Black, kind of a linear first-person shooter, really fast-paced action, kind of feels like a Michael Bay movie. Here's Doom 3, Resurrection of Evil. I haven't played much of this Doom game. I got it at the music store for $2, so I thought that was a good deal. Here's Return to Castle Wolfenstein. This is a really cool looking first person shooter. I remember watching my brother-in-law play this and it looked really cool. Like World War II shooting with some supernatural stuff in there, like werewolves or vampires, whatever it was. I remember this game looked really good back then. Some games I picked up at Burger King. Burger King had Burger King themed video games, and they were $1 or $2, so I thought I should get them just because they're so cheap. They're not really great games, but I just picked them up because they were cheap, and I thought maybe they'd be worth something someday, like for collectors. They're not really worth much to me, but here's Sneak King, where you play the Burger King king and you sneak around and you sneak up on people and give them hamburgers or Whoppers. Another Burger King game, Big Bumpin'. It's like a bumper car game, multiplayer bumper car game. And then Pocket Bike Racer, another Burger King game. This is like a Mario Kart style game. I don't think it was too bad. For $1, it was really good. Midway Arcade Treasures Volume 2. This is a good collection to have. A lot of fun old Midway arcade games on here, including all 3 of the original Mortal Kombats. Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, a lot of fun games on here. Actually, Hard Driving's on here. Spy Hunter 2, Narc, Xenophobe, Rampage World Tour. I don't have part 1 of this, but part 2 is all I need. I like the first 3 Mortal Kombats. Here's Soul Calibur 2 with Spawn for Xbox. Soul Calibur 2. These games look amazing, like they're really pleasing to the eye, but I've never been into the play style. Maybe I just don't understand it. It feels like you can just mash buttons to win. I'm more into Street Fighter, but these can be fun. Just trying to play through the arcade or play against your friends, just whoever can mash buttons better. I'm sure there's a technique to it, but I don't really understand it. Here's Tao Fing, Fist of the Lotus, the fighting game. I think it was from one of the co-creators of Mortal Kombat. He went off to do his own thing. Not Ed Boon, but the other guy. I think his name was Tobias. Or he had a development team do this game, and it was an Xbox exclusive. It looks really good. I don't think the Mortal Kombat games at the time had this much detail. And it played pretty good too. I like the style of fighting in there. It was really gory, just like you'd expect from someone who created Mortal Kombat. I remember it being very solid. I played it quite a bit. It wasn't quite as good as Mortal Kombat, but it was a very decent game. I'm saying the graphics in here were ahead of its time, I thought. Here's Showdowns, Legends of Wrestling. Nothing special, just a wrestling game. Nothing special about the gameplay. I just liked it because it had all of my favorite old school wrestlers in here. Like a lot of them were on here. I can't think of any game that had this many wrestlers I like on it from back in the day in WWF and NWA or WCW. Here's some more shooty games. Ghost Recon 2. Summit Strike. These are fun little squad tactical shooting games. I never got into them. My brother-in-law loved these. Ghost Recon 2 Final Assault. That must be another version of it. These games really look amazing. And I think you can do third person or first person on these. Here's Classic Trilogy Pack, Tom Clancy Pack. It has Rainbow Six, Splinter Cell, and Ghost Recon all on in one case. Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare. I don't even remember this being on Xbox. I thought it was on Xbox 360. This looks really amazing on the back. This Xbox machine was way ahead of its time. I know people were all about PlayStation 2, but if you played the games and saw the games back then at the time, like the Xbox just looked so much more amazing. And I like the controller better on it. And it had a built-in hard drive. The PlayStation, you had to buy memory cards. This thing, you could use memory cards or use the internal hard drive. I think it might have been like a gig of memory in there or something. Not much for the time, but it was enough to store all the save games. You'd never run out of space on there. And you could even store music on it. On to a series I really, really like, Splinter Cell. I remember when I first got my Xbox, my roommates bought me some video games for Christmas, which was really nice of them. Like Crash Bandicoot and Prince of Persia and this, I think. This is the only one I really like, though. There's some kind of super spy. Kind of like a mixture of James Bond and Batman. You'd be sneaking around the CIA headquarters on one level you'd be in the jungle fighting, sneaking around. This is a really fun game. And I played this game over and over and over. I had this game mastered where I could go through every level without getting spotted or taking any damage. And then I had to get Splinter Cell 2, of course. I like Splinter Cell 1 so much. This is back when I had a lot of free money and I could buy a game every week and play through a game every week. Some games I would continue playing and just keep playing them over and over, and these Splinter games were some of those. I played this one over and over as well. Just a different story, more of the same sneaking around, stealing files, assassinating dictators. And then the third one, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. This one got really good. This is another example of how powerful the Xbox was. I mean, this type of thing looked like something that would be on the Xbox 360. This was just more of the same, but they really upped the graphics in here. Oh, and then I have this bonus disc here that had some additional levels for Splinter Cell and Rainbow Six and Ghost Recon. Back then, I don't think we had DLC, or very little DLC. Like, once a game was done, it was done. But in some occasions, they had these additional levels you could download. And I didn't have internet back then, so I just would buy these discs that have the additional levels on there. And there were some additional Splinter Cell levels that were pretty fun. Jedi Outcast, Jedi Knight 2. This looks like an adventure action Star Wars game. I don't know if it has role-playing elements. I never played it. I just bought it at the thrift store because it was cheap. And I heard Lando's in there. Lando's probably my favorite Star Wars character. I don't think you play as him, but I think he has an appearance in here. Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy. A Lego action little platformer game that follows the original trilogy. This is stuff my wife likes. I've never really been into the Lego games, but they look adorable. Star Wars Battlefront. I know the new Battlefront's all the rage now, but back then this was pretty impressive as well. Just a big battlefield game set in the Star Wars universe. Battlefront 2 I have. This one's really fun as well. I don't remember spending much time on this, but from what I played, it was fun. Simpsons Hit and Run. If you like Simpsons and you like Grand Theft Auto, this game is for you. I never spent much time on it. I like to just mess around with these games, just drive around and go explore stuff. My wife actually beat it. Destroy All Humans, kind of an action shooter game. It might be open world too. I remember my wife played these games. I don't remember if she beat them or not, but they look pretty fascinating. Destroy All Humans 2. I don't really remember much about that. This is one of my wife's games. Here's Futurama the game, which I haven't spent any time with, and I don't have the proper case for it. I bought it for my wife because Futurama is one of her favorite shows, but I don't think she was too impressed with the game. Okay, here's a really fun one. This is Beyond Good and Evil. This was kind of under the radar back then. I don't think it sold a lot. It didn't make a lot of money. But this was a really fun adventure game, kind of in the same vein as Zelda, only it was sci-fi, futuristic themed. So if you like Zelda games, around the time I think it was like Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker, this is a lot like that style of game. And there's a story too. It might be a little more linear than Zelda, but overall it felt like a kind of a big open world to explore, dungeons to conquer, power-ups. It just felt like a really big immersive world to take part in, a little story like Zelda. And it was really fun. A lot of the game felt really cinematic too. A lot of the chase scenes, a lot of the action. Just a really well-made game overall. I think this was one of the first games that started the little photography thing in games. Like a lot of times in games now, you take pictures or you scan different enemies or animals to study the animals or enemies or whatever. I remember this is one of the first games that did that. Like Resident Evil does it now. Resident Evil Revelations and Metroid does it, and Dead Rising does it. This was the first game I remember doing that, because I never played any Pokemon games. I guess they probably did it too. Psychonauts looked like a silly little platformer adventure game, kind of like Banjo-Kazooie. I never played it much. My wife started it and she really liked it, but I don't know if life got in the way or other games we wanted to play more. But from what I saw of this game, it looked very interesting. Okay, here's Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. I know the mindset of many people is that video games based on movies are garbage. We haven't seen a lot of video games based on movies lately. Back then they were all over the place and they got a lot of crap. People didn't like them. But this one was really good. It really had the look and the feel of the Lord of the Rings movies. And they were beat 'em up hack and slash games. So you play through levels that resembled scenes from the movies in a hack and slash style. You could play either the man or the elf or the dwarf. And I think you could even do 2-player or maybe even 3-player at once. It was a really fun hack and slash beat 'em up game, and it used all the music from the movie. It made it feel really epic, and all of the environments felt like they were out of the movie. So I thought this was a really fun game, and you could upgrade your character, you could upgrade your weapons as you progress through the levels. And then there was Return of the King, and more of the same. Looks like they improved it even more on this one. Just the same type of game as the previous one, only a sequel based on the next movie. A little bit of improvement. Both of them were really fun. 007 Nightfire. Really fun first-person shooter. I love James Bond, so I have to buy every single James Bond game. This was one I wasn't really into. But I mean, the levels were great. They really felt like Bondian. Really had a great Bond feel. There were some driving levels. There was a multiplayer similar to GoldenEye where you could play all the classic Bond characters and villains. 007 Everything or Nothing. I've talked about this before. This is one of my favorite games of all time. This really feels like a James Bond movie, particularly like the Roger Moore era, because the plot is so silly and over the top. But they did get Pierce Brosnan to voice this game, and there are a lot of other big celebrities in here, like Willem Dafoe is the villain. But this is a really fun third person. I really prefer third person games to first person, especially when you have a character model that looks as good as this. It looks like Pierce Brosnan. It's a really good character model, so better to see that. It really feels like you're playing a Bond movie or playing through an action scene in a Bond movie when you see that character model of Pierce Brosnan and it's his voice and he's throwing out little quips and one-liners. This is probably one of my favorite games ever. GoldenEye Rogue Agent. This was sort of a James Bond spin-off where you play a rogue MI6 agent who goes to work for the Bond villains. Like, I think you work for Dr. No and Goldfinger and Scaramanga at certain points in this game. This is not sneaky at all. No stealth, no gadgets. It's just a straightforward shooter. Kind of similar to that game called Black. This is just a very linear action-packed shooter. I thought it was pretty fun when I played it. I would prefer the James Bond style, kind of sneaking around and action mixed up. But this is just a action game. A lot of the levels in here were out of classic Bond movies, so I really love that. And then the multiplayer maps, they were all out of Bond movies. I think the set designer Ken Adam from the older Bond movies, he worked on a lot of them from the beginning up until Moonraker. He designed the levels in here, like he drew out little sketches, so it really has that 70s, 60s feel, or 60s and 70s feel. There are a lot of sets from like Goldfinger or The Man with a Golden Gun. Scaramanga's Funhouse is in here as a multiplayer level. I know that wasn't a Ken Adams set, but oh, and then the Moonraker facility is in here. A lot of stuff from the movies. You can even fight on the Golden Gate Bridge from A View to a Kill. I just really like this game for all of the Bond locations. Here's From Russia with Love. This is probably another one of my favorite games ever made. I'm just happy that this game exists. I think it might have been right between Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig in the movies. But then this game came out and it was Sean Connery based on 60s Bond. So this is based on From Russia with Love, the movie. It really goes off the beaten path from the movie, but I do like the design of this game. It really feels 60s. And Sean Connery's in there, and actually Sean Connery voices Bond in here. I think it may have been one of the last credited roles of Sean Connery before he retired. He may have actually been retired when he did this. I don't know how they got him, but I'm happy this game exists because Sean Connery's in here. One of my favorite movies of all time has a video game based on it, and the video game is really good. It's a big, high-budget EA game. Okay, on to the scary games. Silent Hill 2. This is one of my favorite horror games of all time. I remember I picked it up first a long time ago when I had a bunch of other games to play, and I played through maybe half of it, and I kind of lost interest. And I didn't go back to it till about a year later, but I'm glad I did, because once I played through the whole game, I really enjoyed it, and it was a really great experience. Yeah, this game is so surreal, so eerie, such a great atmosphere, really creepy game. A really creepy, disturbing story. Land of the Dead, Road to Fiddler's Green, kind of a spin-off of the Land of the Dead movie. This game is not too great, but I played through the whole thing and beat it and had a decent time with it. There weren't a lot of zombie games back then, and I was huge into zombie movies, so I had to buy this one and play the heck out of it. And there was a lot of enjoyment to be had in here, but it just felt really clunky and awkward. I don't know if that kind of helped with the suspense or the unease, but I just thought it was horrible. Sometimes you'd shoot a zombie 3 times in the head and he wouldn't die. And then sometimes you'd shoot him once in the torso and he'd die. So I didn't quite like the feel of this game. I feel like it didn't quite have the polish I wanted, but it was... for the time, it was the only zombie game I could play besides Resident Evil, and this was a first-person shooter, so I enjoyed it. Here's another one of my favorite horror games, Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth. This is a really eerie video game adaptation of Shadow over Innsmouth, the H.P. Lovecraft short story. There are other short stories in Call of Cthulhu. A lot of the H.P. Lovecraft stuff is worked into this game, but I think the highlight of the game is the first half when it's Shadow over Innsmouth. It's sort of like a game adaptation. A lot of stealth, a lot of sneaking around trying to hide from these creepy village people. This has a really great atmosphere. This game is pretty buggy as well, a lot like Fiddler's Green, but I actually had the save data get corrupted on this many times when I got really far into the game, and the game is so hard to get through at some spots because it's so buggy. But like I kept going with it because it was a fun game, and I wanted to see what happened next. But this game, really great atmosphere. I even played it on PC, and that one was buggy too. I'm sure you could get it on PC now with patches, so it's probably a lot better experience now. I didn't think I had a very good PC back then, so this was really good for Xbox. Really fun, creepy experience. Here's Cold Fear, a really fun Resident Evil style game. Xbox never had any Resident Evil games, which I was disappointed with, but this is probably the closest you could get to Resident Evil 4. It's set on a big oil rig. I forget if it was a military rig or an oil rig, but it's set on a big giant ocean rig, and you're a coast guard, and you're fighting a bunch of zombies that have infested, a bunch of different crazy creatures and zombies that have infested this big rig. It really feels like Resident Evil. I'm pretty sure the production value is up there with Resident Evil. The guy in here even kind of reminds me of Leon from Resident Evil 4. The boss fight at the end of this actually looks and feels a lot like the boss fight from Resident Evil Revelations, but this came out maybe 10 years before that or more. Yeah, this is a really great Resident Evil ripoff, if you could call it that. Okay, I love the Evil Dead movies, so I had to buy this back in the day. This was a budget title, Evil Dead: A Fistful of Boomstick. And I thought it was going to be really crappy. It was a budget title. Most games back then were $50. This one was $20. And I'm not saying it's the deepest game ever created, but it's a really fun beat-em-up adventure hack and slash game set in the Evil Dead universe. You play as Ash, and he's voiced by Bruce Campbell. So he has all the little smug one-liners, so it feels a lot like an Evil Dead movie. And the gameplay is very solid. I was thinking this is going to be garbage, and I was just going to buy it because it was Evil Dead, but the game was very fun, very easy to play. Go around, hack up zombies, or deadites, or whatever they're called in there. Boss fights. There was a lot of time travel, so I think he went back to the Civil War and had a few levels of gameplay. But this was a pretty fun game for $20 back then. And then the sequel was even better. This was a budget title as well. I think it was $20. Yeah, this was a really fun adventure game. Adventure hack and slash beat 'em up. I think this one even threw in little puzzles and stuff, so this was more of a complete game. You had a little zombie midget sidekick, and he would help you out, and he was kind of like your partner. Oh, and the little guy was actually voiced by Ted Raimi, Sam Raimi's brother. And of course Bruce Campbell's back in this one. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. I never was into these games, but I really liked watching my brother play them. These games were huge. Like, there was so much to do in these games. You could get lost in these. It's probably better I never played them, or I would never get anything done. Here's Max Payne. This is probably one of the first third-person shooters I ever played, and I didn't know about adjusting the camera. It's natural for me to press the thumbstick left and have the guy look left, or press the thumbstick up and have the guy look up. But this was inverted, and it took me a long time to get used to that. It was the first third-person shooter I ever played. That type of dual analog style. I didn't know you could turn off the inverted camera, so I had a hard time with this game. But it was really fun, and I really wanted to progress in the game. I had a fun time with this. Now I know you can adjust the camera control on games, but back then I didn't know about it, so I had a really hard time. But I really enjoyed this game. Max Payne 2. I haven't played this at all. I just bought it because it was cheap. It was $1.50 at GameStop. That's a really good deal, $1.50. Okay, Driver 3. That was a lot like Grand Theft Auto. I remember this game was a bugger to play, but it was fun to drive around and explore the city. Just drive around in your car and explore, and the graphics looked pretty good back then. Crash Team Racing. I didn't really know much about this game back then, but I recently bought it for $1 at the music store. And this is actually a platformer adventure game with racing levels. So I've never really seen anything like this where it's a platformer adventure game like Super Mario 64, but then there are racing levels on it. So Tony Hawk's Underground, I think that's like an adventure skating game. My wife really likes these games. I never really got into them. I like the first two Tony Hawk games on PlayStation 1 because you never really saw anything like that before, but I never really got into them past that. My wife loved them though. Here's Sega GT and Jet Set Radio Future. This is what came with the Xbox. Here's Burnout. This game is really fun. This is a really frantic, high-speed racing game. You're racing through traffic. It's really frantic and fun. I remember I was never really big into racing games, but this is one I had a lot of fun with. And my brother was really good at this, and my wife liked it. And then there was Burnout 2. This one was just as good, even better. I never played it much. This one was more about causing wrecks. The first one was more about you have to avoid wrecks. This one was like, the whole idea of the game was to smash into stuff and destroy stuff, but it's still frantic and fun. And then there was Burnout 3. I never got into these. My wife loved them. This was a lot more like you have to crash into stuff, and instead of avoiding stuff, the whole idea was to run other cars off the road or smash into stuff and cause damage. And then there was Burnout Revenge. I never played it much. My wife did. This one came out for Xbox 360 around the time of its launch, but they also released it on the Xbox, and I think the Xbox One looks just as good as the 360 version. Here's Shenmue 2. This is a game I had to buy when I got my Xbox. I love Shenmue 1. Shenmue 1's one of my favorite games of all time, and this one's up there too. I just never have time to finish it. It's so time consuming, and I have less and less free time now. I'm about halfway through it now. Last vacation I tried to play through and I got halfway through. I think next time I go on vacation I might try to finish it. I have to finish it before Shenmue 3 comes out. So I think I have a lot of time to finish this. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. This is a really fun adventure RPG game. I never got too far into it because I was overwhelmed with other games I was playing at the time. And RPGs are not really my thing, but from what I played of this, it was amazing. Big epic RPG set in the Star Wars universe. What really bothers me about this game is I think it's supposed to be set thousands of years before the events of the Star Wars movies, but everything looks just the same or better back then. Like I don't know. It just seems ridiculous that nothing has changed in thousands of years. Jade Empire, another game similar to Knights of the Old Republic. I think it's by the same developer as BioWare. This one's kind of an Asia-themed RPG, like Kung Fu themed. This one's really cool from what I've seen of it too. My wife started playing through it. I don't have time for these things, but this game looks really amazing. Fable, not really my thing, but my wife loved these games. I love watching my wife play these games. These Fable, these are really fun action RPGs. A lot like Zelda, but more leveling up your character and leveling up all your gear and all that. And then there was Fable The Lost Chapters. Back then you couldn't download DLC or expansions, so they would just come out with new games. So my wife got this one too and played the heck out of it. The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. This game is amazing. And it's so amazing the Xbox could pull this off. I never got into Elder Scrolls until Oblivion, and I loved Oblivion. I played that more than any game on the Xbox 360 probably. I spent so many hours on that. This was the Skyrim back then. This Skyrim's the big role-playing game now, the big open world role-playing game, which is Elder Scrolls 5. This is 3, and back then it was just as impressive as Skyrim is now. This is a game I never beat because it's so time-consuming. It's so addicting, though. I don't really want to play this game because I waste too much time. And then Deus Ex Invisible War. This is a sci-fi futuristic first-person shooter RPG. From what I played with it, it was really fun. I think I got lost on it, so I never beat it, but really fun game nonetheless. Well, that took forever, but I'm glad I finally got that over with. That was my biggest video game collection. And that was one console I probably spent more time on than any other console, other than maybe Super Nintendo when I was a kid. Yeah, that just takes me back to a time when I didn't have as many responsibilities and I had a lot more money to waste on silly things, so it kind of brings a smile to my face, reminiscing about this Xbox. So anyway, I'll see you next week with my diet update. My progress probably won't be good because we have a big company dinner this week at my work, and it's Father's Day, so I'm probably going to grub. I don't think I'll have very good progress next week, although I'm going to keep up the squats, the lifting the weights at the gym. I think that's going to help out with my energy and help me burn more fat. So anyway, see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.